All right, everyone. Good morning. Good afternoon, I guess. This is our study group meeting for the admin certification. And today's topics, we are wrapping up our data management topic with data backups. Zach will be walking through reporting options for us. And then I will conclude us today as well with our sharing model impact. This could be a fairly quick phone call meeting today, depending on how much Zach has to show us, because the two topics that I'm presenting on are pretty simple. And so it's not going to take too long to run through those. So if you have questions as we go, feel free to jump in and ask, and we'll go from there. All right, so data backups was the first topic that I had. This, again, kind of concludes the data management piece, but really what this is talking about are ways that we can ensure kind of a disaster recovery or continuity. We always want to make sure that we've got a copy of our data stored somewhere other than in Salesforce. And the simplest approach for this, or at least the out-of-the-box solution for it, is this option called data export. And you get to the data export simply by going into setup. You can type data export into the into your quick find, and it will take you to a screen that looks like this, where you have the option to either do a manual export, where you can do it now. It isn't technically now, but it just means they prepare the files for you now. So you'll be able to get them in a few minutes. And then, or you can schedule a monthly or weekly export to happen using the schedule export. So we'll talk through that. Let's first go through what our options are here. So you can do either a weekly or monthly exports. Once every 7 days for the weekly, or it's 29 days for the monthly. That you can only do these exports in a production org. So that includes our dev orgs. You can do your exports there. Professional and developer editions only support a monthly backup. I did not know that until I started looking at it. In fact, I was going in and playing with it, and I thought, where's my weekly? I'm pretty sure I can do weekly. And so that's only for those with an enterprise or above license. So be aware of that. We already kind of talked about the fact that exports can be manually done. That's the button there that was on the left, or they can be scheduled, which was the one that I just clicked on the right. Scheduled times are not guaranteed. So when you're in here, it does give you a preferred start time. But just because you choose 4 a.m. does not mean that you're going to have your files ready at 4 a.m. They do take the luxury of managing this process. And so it may not be till 5, 6, or 7. And in fact, the notes indicated that it could be the next day before this is actually ready for you. So if you're looking for a way to quickly extract the files, and it has to occur on a very tight schedule, this is probably not going to be a good solution for that. So schedule times are not guaranteed. What it will do, though, is create zip files for you, and those zip files will be in a CSV format, and they'll be available only for 48 hours once they are completed. So what happens here is when you're scheduling your backup, or anytime you're asking Salesforce to create these export files for you, they will generate one or more zip files. You'll get an email when it's ready, and it'll in that email will be a link to take you to the export area where you'll have the ability to download those zip files. If you're in a fairly small org, everything might fit into one zip file. If you're in a larger org with lots of data, you may have a lot of zip files to download. And you'll need to download each of those zip files to then store them somewhere. In general, well, I shouldn't say in general, unless something's changed, inside those zip files is a CSV file for each of your objects. It is possible that it, say like for tasks, maybe you've got 1 million or so task records, that CSV file could be broken into multiple CSV files across multiple zip files. So just be aware of that when you are trying to work with this particular model, that it'll be something like task.csv, I think is something like that for their naming convention. So it's real easy to identify what all the files are, but they could be broken up into multiple zip files. Again, remember, they're only there for 48 hours. So you do have to get them downloaded. Otherwise, Salesforce will remove those zip files that they created. You can include images, documents, and attachments. And to do that, that's your checkboxes that are listed up at the top of the screen here. So include images, documents, and attachments. If you want to do that, you would simply check the box. Include Salesforce files and Salesforce CRM content is another option, simply checking the box. And then if you need to replace carriage returns with spaces, so maybe you're importing this information into another system and instead of a carriage return, they prefer you to use a space, or that's a requirement, then you can simply include or select or unselect that particular item. And then include all data or selectively choose from the list of standard or custom objects. Okay, so back over here. So we have our scheduling aspect of it right here. And again, if you have the option for weekly, I believe it's just another line item that you can choose between. So you've got it, it's kind of like a radio button, one for the monthly and one for weekly. When you can set your start date and your end date. Because these calendars don't go that far out, a lot of times I will manually put in that end date just so that I can extend it longer than sometimes what the calendar allows me to do. So just keep that in mind, and then you have your preferred start time. All right, so what do we want to include in our export? Most of the time I just do an includes all data. If you select that box, then all of your objects will be included in your export. If you don't want everything, you can certainly randomly choose to grab just the items that are important to you. One thing to note here, and this is another new thing that I wasn't aware of. When you schedule the export, it's taking a snapshot of the objects that are in your org at the time that you're scheduling it. So if you create a brand new object, it will not get backed up unless you come back in here and reschedule another job. So that's kind of an important piece if you are relying especially on the include all data. That anything you create new from an object standpoint will not be included in your backup. Any questions on that process? Everybody doing some form of a backup? Please say yes, please say yes. Silence. All right.
No, actually,
we are, Terry. American Equity is.
Okay, good. Good. Some other options, because the built-in one, honestly, and it's not what I would consider ideal in that it does require you as an admin to go out and pull those files down. It's really easy to forget to do that, and then you really have kind of messed up your continuity plan. But if that sort of thing is really important to you, then I would probably find another product off of AppExchange that you can use to back up your data. There's several big vendors out there that do this specifically, and they do it really well. So definitely be aware that AppExchange has options available for backups. And then of course you can use Data Loader. We talked about Data Loader last week, and again, data loader will be a manual process, although I think you can schedule things with data loader as well. But that would be another option, is to use that tool for your backups. Any questions on exporting data? Oh, you know, one other option is, I don't know that I'd recommend it, but you can certainly do reports here too. and export data from a report. Other thoughts or ideas on that topic? Hearing none, I'm going to stop sharing. And I believe, Zach, you are here now, so I'm going to turn it over to you to cover reports.
Yeah, you bet. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. I wanted to kind of more go over kind of a live demo. I am guessing that this is probably a section of the exam that a lot of us feel pretty comfortable with. I feel like reporting is one of the first things we get asked to do as an admin. And I can't figure out, hold on. It's a good thing I don't need to be good with technology in my job.
Yeah, I would guess most of you guys know reports better than I do.
But seriously, where is the share screen button?
It should be at the bottom of your meeting.
The big green share?
Yes, that would be the one.
Okay, great. Okay, can we see that okay?
Yep, let's go.
Yep.
Okay, so I will just walk through kind of the creation of a few of these things and go through, you know, creating a report, maybe share some of the pitfalls I've had, and I guess we could all kind of share any insight with each other on this. I feel like this is probably a good overall knowledge builder in addition to exam knowledge builder. But when we're creating a new report in Lightning, you're going to find the Reports tab up at the top and just go to a new report. There are a lot of reports that are out of the box. And I'm sure probably everybody here has had to create different report types when we create custom objects. Some are created automatically, some we need to establish those relationships. If you do create a report type, I won't talk a lot about it because it doesn't seem like it's covered on the exam, but if you do create a report type, you can do either with or without relationship. So I could do, for example, a contact with an account, or I could do contacts with or without accounts. If you're looking at a Venn diagram, kind of either the shared area, or, you know, maybe all contacts, they may or may not have accounts, but go ahead and pull that account object into the report information as well. But if we're coming in here, a lot of these are predefined. So I might come here to opportunity reports, and I can go to maybe just all opportunities. From there, I'm going to have 3 different sections, if you will, in the report. In fact, I'm going to go to one I've already created. It's a little bit easier. The way that I kind of think about the sections of the report is it does look a little different than Classic. You've got your filters kind of in their own tab of the report builder. You can add a filter. I mean, it's all the same things that are available in Classic. It just looks and feels a little bit different. You can still add a cross filter in Lightning, as well as Classic, add filter logic if you had filters in there. But then you have your outline, and this is where you can, I think it makes it a little bit easier to create like matrix or summary report types in Lightning, because you have, you can just punch in the rows instead of dragging them in. Sometimes the drag and drop fields work great. Sometimes they don't. This allows you to put it exactly where you want it to be. The other thing is this field. You can either hide or show the field, and you can drag these in as well. I can pull created by into any of these, into a group, or I can simply come to the column and put in my created by. so that's kind of setting it up. As far as summarizing the data, there are several different report types. I mean, all the same report types that were in Classic are in Lightning. And I'm realizing I'm doing this very much from like a Classic to Lightning perspective because we're in the middle of training our users on Lightning. But the difference is that Salesforce kind of will automatically create these for you, the report types. So if you don't have a column in here for group column, it's you're not going to have that report type, right? If I get rid of the grouping of rows, it's going to automatically be tabular. As it used to be, switch between tabular, switch between summary, switch between matrix. Now, if I have a group row, I'm in tabular. If I put any kind of grouping in here, then that is automatically going to be a summary. And if I put a column in here, then it's automatically going to be a matrix format. So there's report types. As far as filtering the data, like I mentioned here, it's you're going to have a date field kind of by default, and you can choose one date field in here. When we're setting these up for our users, we're going to choose, like if it's an activity, we typically are going off the due date field, but whatever date is most pertinent, that's what I want here. And that is going to be the one that is easiest to change later. Now, I might want, if I'm doing something on a case, I might want something that has both a created by or a created date as well as maybe a due date or a close date field. I might say, hey, give me anything that was created this year, but that has not closed, right? And so I can do, or that closed in the third quarter. For example, I can do additional date filters in there. I'm just going to have this one primary date filter. In fact, let me just run it here so we can see that. And as I'm saying this, I might be in Classic Mindset. Am I in Classic Mindset, Terry? I've got the date filter right up at the top that I can change between.
Oh, yeah, that's a Classic thing.
Yeah, all right.
You could go back to a screen and do the filter and still toggle back and forth. But
Yeah, I was going to say,
right.
I'm probably not going to be your expert on this topic because most people don't.
Yeah, hit the little funnel button, the funnel. And
thank you. That's what it is.
Nice.
And then here's where, yes, this is what I'm thinking of. This allows that date field to still be, I think, pretty easy to have these quick date fields, if you will. If a sales manager, here at our company wanted to look at something from last month, that person could easily change this to last month if it's current month.
So they may refer to those as relative dates. So just
yes,
if
exactly.
You see that term, that's what it's referring to.
Yep. So let me see here. Then we could throw, for example, well, let's just say last modified date. And we can use all of those, but it's just not quite as, if I come here, all these ranges are kind of pre-built, and I don't know why that is. I don't know why these don't automatically populate for other date fields. So again, last modified date. I can use that relative date. I need to know that it's last 7 days. That'll work.
If you go up and change close date to last modified date, I think it'll do that. No different than the old Classic version. You can only use one, though, like date as an overall, and then you can filter down more.
Yes, exactly right. And that's kind of what I was trying to say, and I don't think I did a very good job. You have that one sort of primary date field that is very easy for a sales user to change, or at our company where these can be challenging, where it's very easy to see what I can change all of these to. Any additional date field, you're going to need to know last 7 days or last 365 days or next 2 months or whatever it might be. Not a huge hurdle, but yeah, it's that primary date field. And if there's a technical term for that, I'm not aware of it. But this first listed date field is what you're going to have those preset ranges for. Last thing I wanted to talk about just a little bit. Let me go to a report that has a chart on it. These charts are pretty straightforward. The functionality is really similar to dashboards. I'm just going to come up here to add chart. And let me put it instead of created by. Let me do account name. So if the data is organized in a good way, which I didn't do, then simply adding a chart is pretty straightforward. I have different things to choose from. I've got this little gear icon, chart properties. I can easily choose between the different chart types, as well as change the different axes and things like that. Not different, not all that different than classic. I think the charts look nicer, but the functionality is not too terribly different. Let me see if there's anything else I needed to go over here. I don't think so. Any questions on this?
I have one question.
Yeah.
If you go to the filters tab again.
Yep.
In our org, it always defaults to my contacts or my opportunities and like a date. Is there any way we can change defaults for what you have showing, basically all in all?
Not that I know of. It's something I change every time I'm doing that. Does anybody know of an org default that can change there?
I do not. I haven't done a lot of research, but it's been just ingrained in my head that every time someone says I can't see something, I say, are you looking at everything or my?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. New users trip over it all the time. So I was just.
And the other thing, yeah. When I create a report, typically the close date, it depends on the report type. It seems like a lot of times it's current quarter. So I'm usually changing that to all time to start with, and then I'm going to pare it down, figure out exactly what I want to look at later. But yeah, these two, it usually shows my, and at least for a lot of report types in org, it shows current fiscal quarter.
Mm-hmm.
So with the newest release, I think that we have the ability to do, I think it's inline calculations or formulas of any of, I think that's what they call it.
Yeah.
With that yet?
And I didn't see that on the exam guide.
I'm
and
sure it won't be on the exam yet. It's brand new, but I was just curious if anybody's played with it.
We have actually in our org. I have 2 reports now where I put one in. It's pretty limiting, and there is an idea on the Idea Exchange. I'll do a little shameless plug to vote for that to allow for more than one row level formula per report.
Okay.
In fact, let me just pull it up. I think even having 2 or 3 would be a lot more. Well, whatever. I won't waste time on that. If you guys want to Google that and look at it, I think it's useful. If you haven't played with it, if you're trying to really replicate some of the things, for us, one of my personal things is the more that people are in Excel, I think the less efficient we get with all the investments in reporting that Salesforce has done. There's still some things that can't be done, but in order to replicate some of the things that Excel is doing, you kind of have to have more than one. But it is useful, and we've used it for a couple different reports. The one thing that I think is mentioned on the exam that I have not done is conditional formatting. And I'd be curious to see if anybody else has done a whole lot with that.
This is Alana. I used it for one client on a couple of their reports. So when you're in edit, typically down in the right bottom corner, there's a conditional formatting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's because I'm in a test org or what it is, but I haven't been able to get that, which is why I didn't show it, because I didn't want to show our real org.
Does it have to have a number? Like, so like throw
Yes.
the in your columns the amount field in there, or do a different report.
Yeah. Let me maybe this one.
There you go. And
Well, there's a mouse there, isn't there?
yeah, there is.
Ah,
Yeah,
you're right. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, if you're familiar with Excel conditional formatting, it's not substantially different. But we have not done any in our org. What? Who was that said you had done a little bit? Alana, was that you?
Alana, yes. We did it. The specific use case had to do with essentially a retirement community and the number of apartments that were occupied, and so we did the conditional formatting based on the occupancy of their communities and if they were hitting their goals or not. The colors there, and then it. I want to say that you can also, like, the conditional formatting will appear on your dashboard chart as well, which is kind of nice.
Cool.
Yeah, so you could.
I'll take a seat.
Do we need another? Do we need another?
Oh, I'm sorry. There we go. So it's only on the sums here, it looks like, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thoughts on reports?
So when you were doing the row formulas, the new enhancement to reports, did you attempt to try to do anything that was Boolean? I just barely started to mess with this and found severe limitations immediately.
Yeah, I have not done Boolean. What I was doing a lot of so our use case was around like run rates for sales. And so was working on basically dates kind of backed into something to calculate business days in the year and then apply a run rate to that so they could see, sales are at 2 million. What's it going to be at the end of the year? Have not done any Boolean stuff. No.
Okay. It feels just a bit like it's kind of half-baked. Like it works very well in a limited, narrow swath of, asks by the business.
Right. And frankly, that's what, having only one per report, that to me is half-baked. If I'm, to use our use case, if I want a run rate, well, I probably want a variance on that run rate if I have a goal pulling in as well. And so that I can't even do that. I can't do a run rate and a variance. And there's not really a use for our business to be building out dynamic run rate fields that populate all the time. It's used so infrequently, but
right.
There's an occasional report where somebody wants to see a run rate and I can't even give them a variance on that. So I think it's a little bit half-baked. It's useful. We've used it for a few things, but it could use some work.
Well, like most things with Salesforce, when they come out with something like that, it gets better with time. So hopefully we'll see some of those.
Yeah, hopefully that's the case.
Yeah.
Well, I would also expect too that with their acquisition that everyone has heard about this year, that some of the things that work better in that product might filter down eventually.
Right. Yeah, I don't know.
Safe harbor statements there. But yes, we can hope so. Yeah. All right. Well, good. Do you have anything on the dashboard side that you want to show as well, Zach? or can we talk at least a little bit about dashboards?
Yeah, we certainly could. So as far as dashboards, and this to me is one of the big improvements in Lightning. All the components are better. They're just, if you have a dashboard, it's not what I want. I think it's pretty important to have one that looks decent. That's kind of the point of the dashboard. So within one of I probably jacked up with the report that I used for this dashboard. That's probably the one I was playing with. So we'll just edit. But within the dashboard builder, we'll just add so the first thing to do is to add a component. Once you add that component, you are going to pick the report that you're using. Let's do opportunity stages, and hope this will work. And then you can really, the preview is going to show up here. It's pretty, it's pretty nifty, pretty straightforward. It looks a lot like the report builder. There's a little bit more that you can see at the sliced by, for example. There's no additional data in here that I can slice it by, or no additional fields that I can slice that by. But it gives you a little bit more as far as how it's displayed, decimal places, for example, maximum number of values. To me, it really helps you hone in on the visual component of it. The Salesforce report chart is less robust with how you can visually fine tune it. This is more centered around that, right? So do you just want a single number, for example? So we had an activity dashboard that we put together for one of our teams, and this was one of the main things. It was just like total activities. You can resize this pretty easily, which is doesn't look very good. Let's try that one. Right, so this is a big front and center. Hey, we've got 31 opportunities right now. From there, I might be duplicating this data, but this helps senior management know, okay, I've got that 31, but what does that look like? Now I can kind of hone in on that a little bit more. I don't know if there's anything else anybody wants to add. Maybe I missed that that was a part of this, but I hadn't really done much for dashboarding or prepared much for dashboarding. So that's the 2-minute version. Does everybody use dashboards today, or I should say build dashboards today?
We use a combination. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's okay, Kevin. No, at Global Atlantic, we do a lot. I mean, that's what our whole sales team uses every single day for their individual dashboards and then company dashboards.
I was just going to say that we use a combination of home pages with dashboard components on them. One thing that drives me crazy about dashboards is I wish that they weren't limited to only components that were from reports, because we like to have a combination of, like a URL link and maybe a list view. You can't do those things here, but then you can't, on the other side, components that you would add to a homepage, you can't get the same report charts. So maybe we're in a weird hybrid with our business, but I do really like how reports work on a dashboard. I just wish that they would add some other type of components, and maybe that's in the pipeline somewhere along in the future, but it limits a bit for us.
Yeah, one of the really useful things, if it was available in Classic, we weren't using it, but is the Lightning, shoot, I forget what these are called, but it's like a smart list is what it works out to be. And you can kind of back into some list view type use cases for this. Doesn't work quite the same way. It's not, you can't I mean, it's really just there to look at, not do anything from.
Yeah, I think so. We can get some views that are kind of the right views. The problem is that with list views, you can filter and go directly to the list view and things like that. So they're our end users are used to being on certain screens. And if they have to see something in a report that doesn't take them to the list view, it takes them to a report, they get confused on how you filter there versus a list view. And we just get in a vicious cycle.
We do stuff like that too. We put the filters on the dashboards directly so that we have one dashboard with components like you just built where they can hit the drop down to the top and it'll adjust all the charts and components below it.
Yeah, we just have a weird situation where that didn't fix it for us because they wanted the filter on that to be something totally different.
Because of my awesome super users, I don't have to do a lot on the dashboard side of things and the reports. So Tanner's really spearheaded that. Since we moved to Lightning, or our whole implementation's been in Lightning, that's really all he knows. So it's been kind of cool. But I haven't actually had to do a lot with it. So this has been good to learn about.
So any of you have scheduled dashboards or subscribe to your dashboards? Talk a little bit about that process, what it looks like.
We have them that go out regionally, but they're actually still going out from Classic. So Classic scheduled dashboards kind of takes a whole snapshot, and it goes out to them. So for my mobile users on their email, it looks nice and clean, and then it basically takes that day and time snapshot, where the Lightning dashboards, when they get sent out, it's like a live version. I mean, it still shows you the snapshot, but unfortunately on our mobile in our company, the graphs don't come through. So they have to click on the link to say view dashboard, which then takes them to the point in time, and not like, it doesn't allow them to get that snapshot look of what it was, the day paid sales were or whatever. So I have not let go of my Classic dashboards for the ones that are scheduled.
Interesting. Who can receive those dashboards?
Only users.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Also, if you try to
downside.
I didn't say we have some too that we've also actually transitioned from Classic, and you will get an error that once you start making changes, you can't revert back.
Right.
Yeah.
So just note that.
Yes.
Been there, done that. Learned that the hard way.
Okay, so on dashboards, what about the running user? What do we know about that?
I was just going to bring that up, Terry.
Good. Talk to me about it.
So, Zach, I think this is Zach who's presenting. If you click edit on the dashboard or whomever's reporting, and then your little gear icon, you'll see in the middle there's a view dashboard as, and essentially anytime somebody opens the dashboard, it's going to use these settings to determine what sort of data they can see. And if you set your running user, if you will, to this dashboard viewer, every time they view the dashboard, it will show the data that they have access to. The kind of, I guess, downside to that is you can only 5 dashboards that run based on this dashboard viewer. And so that can kind of be limiting depending on how many dashboards you're using and if you have different data security that your users can or cannot see data. Otherwise, you can do, like the view dashboard as me, and maybe, you as a system admin, you have access to all data and you don't care if your users can see all of the data. But that's just kind of some nuances between that, where it seems like, well, of course I want every dashboard to only show the data my viewers have access to, but there's a limitation.
Well, and one of the things there, if I understand it correctly, is that when you do those dynamic dashboards, when you hold on a second. Let me try to.
Terry, do you know why they have such a limit on the number of dynamics that you can use? I know that we started going down a path of creating some dashboards in a certain idea for security, and then realized, oh, all of a sudden we're hitting our upper limit on those.
I don't know what the reason would be for that, honestly. My guess it's a performance thing, but I'm not sure exactly why. I mean, when you're running it as yourself, it does have to refresh those elements of the components every time you come into it. So perhaps that's why, but I don't have any good insight on that, Kevin.
You just really have to be cognizant if you have it run as someone else,
yes,
that they don't, that running user doesn't have access to something that somebody below them is not supposed to have,
yeah.
and then they can see it anyway because it's looking at their security access.
Yeah. And that's the topic that I'll have here after we're done here. There's one more piece that I wanted to talk about on the report side, and that's custom report types. Anybody play around with the pros and cons of custom report types?
I add things all the time through the, the lookup values because of limitations between having multiple levels of objects and not tied actually correctly through a parent-child relationship.
Okay, so you'd create a...
Sorry, everybody.
Sorry?
Oh, sorry, I lost audio there. But
oh, sorry, Zach. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you need me to turn the screen over to anybody here?
No, that's fine.
I'm not sure what I missed. Okay.
Yeah, we're just talking about custom report types.
Okay.
Yeah, I would suspect you'll see at least a question on about that. So my biggest con against custom report types, and I'm honestly not a huge fan of them because I think this is such a significant con, is that if you go and create new fields, those new fields don't automatically show up in those custom report types. You have to go in and manually add the field to make it available there as well. So to me, that's a really big negative to the custom report types. Certainly you can't get away from not using them in some cases, some situations, but just be aware of that limitation there. Anybody else run into good or bad or related to report types?
So a bad, Terry, is that you can hide report types that have been created, and if someone does that, some admin goes in and does that to try to make it so that end users that have the ability to create reports all of a sudden don't see 200 report types.
Yeah.
If you've created a report type that they've hidden, your report will stop working immediately.
Yes. Or if you modify that report type in a fashion that the reports no longer work off of it.
Right.
That will be problematic too. If a user can't see a custom report type that you've created, what might you look at to troubleshoot that?
You'd want to make sure that it's been deployed when you're building it.
Oh.
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure it's deployed. And assuming they have access to the object, that would be the big issue. Yeah, make sure it's deployed. You make that mistake once and then you remember to do that correctly every time after that. All right, any other things that related to reports? Again, you guys probably know reports far better than I do. Any
I'm curious, I'm curious who here has users that are creating and running and changing their own reports versus you doing everything, or the admin team doing everything?
We have some, but we have a very select few that even can comprehend creating reports. then they just get confused because they're sharing a report and somebody adds a filter to it, and they don't understand why all of a sudden everything looks wrong. So we're still working on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely want to control your report folder sharing, manage that really well. If I've got dashboards that I know executives are making decisions off of, I definitely want to have any report related to that dashboard locked down to where no one can make changes to it except for those who understand the ramifications of those changes. So, yeah.
Okay.
All right, very good. So we've already kind of hit on this a little bit, but this next piece here is on the sharing model from the standpoints of reports and dashboards. And really from a report standpoint, reports do honor your org-wide defaults and sharing rules and the role hierarchy of the user. So if you can see it in the UI, you should be able to see it on a report. Now, that also means and can create confusion in that two people could be running the same report and get different results. And that's purely because that second person may not have access to the same set of data that the first person had. So be aware of that reports do honor your sharing rules and role hierarchy within your orgs. Okay. Now, when you come to dashboards honor the same set of rules, but for the running user of that report. And Alana, I think you took us into where we could see that on our dashboard where we had our running user, this little bit of information. So if it's running as me, then it's going to, what I see in the dashboard is going to be exactly what I see in the UI or on a report. If it's running as someone else, then it could create a different view of data on my dashboard than what I normally would have access to. And then the same is true with, well, the dashboard viewer, that's basically running as me. It's running as the person looking at it, so it should match what I can see there as well. But this, as another person component, just be aware that if they click into a report, they could see something that's entirely different results than what they see on the dashboard. And that can sometimes create confusion for users because the report honors those org-wide default settings and sharing, where the dashboard honors it at a different level based on your running user. So I think, again, since most of you guys deal with these dashboards and reports all the time, you're already probably pretty familiar with this concept. But that can definitely throw people off. And it's likely a very good certification question, I would guess. So what would cause the difference between the information I see on a dashboard versus what I see on a report? It very well could be whoever that running user is. Any other thoughts on that on the sharing side of things? One thing I might mention, and I don't remember if we covered this when we talked about folders or not, but do keep in mind that your folders for reports and dashboards have their own security. So if you are creating a folder, it uses its own security model here. So let me.
Yeah, Terry, often I try to use public groups for multiple purposes. I know that there can be a hassle to manage, but they can also be very helpful for security for multiple places. And this is one of the places I use public groups for. Yeah, very good, Kevin. Yeah, public groups is one of your options for sharing report folders. This is also where I said if I've got a dashboard that executives are using for decisions,
I will lock it down so that it becomes a view only access as opposed to editor manage level for the for anyone that might need to run the dashboard, but I don't want them making changes. That would be something to also be aware of. Any other thoughts at all on reports and dashboards? All right, do you feel like we covered that pretty well? And all right, so next week then, let's look at our schedule. So next week, we will cover the, oh, I guess, I'm sorry. We cover dashboard options next week with Carla. sorry, we covered that a little bit today, as well as custom report types.
Hook.
Wow. So we don't have to meet tomorrow, next week. No, actually, so.
No, it just means I don't have to present. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, there you go. Custom report in there for next week as well. So we kind of covered the gamut. So it's possible that maybe next week will be a little bit quick as well. But workflow and processes, Kevin, you'll probably have a fair amount of info there. So maybe we can go through the dashboards and report types fairly quickly again as kind of an overview. And then spend more time on workflow.
Terry, I really liked the last time you presented, you had some mock questions. Maybe we can do that next week if we have some extra time. I thought that was really good. So if we could do more of that, I think that would be really good for our people.
Yes, Terry, if you could come up with more questions and trip us up.
I'll see what I can do for you, Kevin. It's not too hard to trip you up.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, everybody.
Just a suggestion.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. Because when we get down here to our last week, that's exactly what I'm planning on this to be the entire time. Is we're just going to either between Carla and I we'll come up with and we'll just kind of go through like we did last week with the presentation and so yeah, good stuff. I appreciate it. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and call us done for today if no one has any more questions. All right, guys, have a great afternoon. Talk to you soon.
You too.
Thanks, Terry.
Thanks.
User group tomorrow, so hope to see you all there.
Oh, I'll be there. See you.
Yeah.
All right.
See you tomorrow. Bye, guys.